On behalf of myself and Inclus, I would also like to introduce you to our customer success team, who will be the speakers or presenters here today. So starting from the top, we have Julie Oleski and Matias Sarvanne and Valtteri Frantzi, and we'll be hearing more from them a bit later on. But I could just warm up the webinar by just walking through the agenda for today, and then also some practicalities. So first and foremost, here on my screen now, so you can see the agenda. So as we all are well aware, at least here in Europe, so all the increasing sustainability regulation, ESRS and CSRD. So that's been a hot topic for some time already, and we have been seeing more and more interest towards sustainability related topics also among our current customer base, but also when speaking to new contacts. So the main focus today will be to go over how Inclus can be used to support sustainability efforts with an emphasis on double materiality assessments. And then after that, Matias will take the stage and talk more about our Inclus AI features and how they will be released to our current customers. And then last but not least, Julie will walk us through some of our latest bigger key features, dashboards and incident reporting. So looking forward to that as well. And then in the end, couple minutes reserved for questions and answers. But regarding questions, so if you have any questions whatsoever throughout the webinar during the presentation, so feel free to either send them as a note here in the chat box. We'll answer them right away, or when the time is appropriate during the presentation. Or then you can also, if you prefer to use the mic, then you can also raise your hand. Great. I think I went through all the basics, and the webinar is now also recording. So I will just go ahead and give the microphone to mic and screen to Valtteri. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jesper, and good morning to everybody. And my name is Valtteri Frantzi. I'm the head of customer success at Inclus, and I promise to say a few words about the sustainability related matters and how to use Inclus platform for those purposes. So I suppose you should be seeing my screen now, and what I try to do, I want to share just a little bit of background and just a few slides to provide contextual information. Of course, I don't want to go too deeply into those matters, and I mean, we all know that the growing and increasing legislation and regulation is a huge amount of information. So not a goal here to provide comprehensive account to that, but just like couple slides why we do what we do and what could be the added value of Inclus for you as well. So of course the EU ESRS and CSRD regulation that of course will force companies to disclose and report their actual and potential sustainability risks and opportunities. That is the sort of starting point for the double materiality assessment. And here how we see it, the double materiality assessment, it's basically a risk management process. And I think the main difference there is that you just need to focus on the actual impacts as well. But considering like how most of the companies that I've been working with, how they manage the risks and opportunities, they also look at the realized and actual risks and opportunities to some degree as well. So in that sense, it's not a new element in the risk management process. However, what is new is the sort of depth that is required from the companies to like investigate their own operations and the different aspects of the sustainability matters. That is a new, and that's why it's helpful to get started with some kind of default or standard checklist where you can go through the topics identified in the standard, and then get the sort of iteration and analysis going on further. And in order to do the actually identify the material topics, you need to do the double materiality assessment. So it is quite explicit requirement of the standard. So you need to do it to set up the priorities right, and it will also help you that you don't end up spending up too much time and effort on those things that in the end doesn't matter to your business as much as you thought maybe. And also the stakeholder engagement is a quite explicit requirement of the standard, so meaning both internal and external stakeholders. So the standard, for instance, says that those stakeholders whose interests might be affected by your own operations, their interests should be consulted as well. And this might mean suppliers and customers, and even it's mentioned that nature itself can be considered as a like silent stakeholder. I don't know yet how to ask from the nature, but maybe it can also give you some ideas how that you should be taking it seriously as well. And then, of course, you should be considering the different types of activities and businesses that you have. So if you have different types of operations, you should do the double materiality assessment separately for each, and then, of course, the consolidate, the group view, and so on. But these are things that are mentioned in the standard, and why you probably will need some kind of tools to run the process with efficiency. And I think the most difficult part is the last one, that it's mentioned that you need to integrate the sustainability risks and opportunities with the existing management and reporting structures. And here I don't want to emphasize just the reporting structures, but I think it should be also as a part of sort of core of your enterprise risk management process and core of the strategy process. And of course, it's asks the question that what kind of frameworks and what kind of processes you have in place. So maybe smart to integrate into those as well, but considering that the depth is completely new, it might be like a part-time separate track and separate process where you analyze these things further, but then maybe later in time you integrate them with your enterprise risk management process when you found out the most important topics, for instance. Just a couple slides. This is not from the ESRS or CSRD, but rather the other acronym TNFD, so specifically focusing on the climate-related risks. And one thing here, first of all, is quite nice that you sometimes get these conversations in the companies also that, okay, what is really a risk and what is an impact? And I think this just nicely illustrates that you have different perspectives into exactly the same topics, and also emphasize the need why we need to do this process is that you have these nature-induced risks, and then they might become financially material, financially relevant risk for your company. And for the climate-related risks, you have primarily two routes. One is the physical risks, so it might challenge your value production one or the other way. Maybe temperature is increasing, or sea level is rising, and those might affect your capability to add value. And then you have the transition risk and market risk and technology risks, and how changing legislation and competitive landscape and these kind of things. So maybe actually if I go to this slide first, and I think what this picture just adds in is that like you have the physical risk and then transition risks that might be induced by the nature. And then it asks question that, okay, what are your existing processes to ensure your company's resilience? So how do you manage your operational risk? How do you manage your assets? So you should probably consider this type of ESG risks as a part of those processes. And regarding transition risks, you might have some kind of processes how you, with the management group or steering group or the sort of primary executive layer of your company, how do you look at the sort of risks and opportunities and changing operating environment and legislation and so on. So I think it's quite important to put in there to support the strategy execution and risk management at sort of higher level in the company as well. So it's not really a straightforward thing to just like implement these things in your company, and I don't think nobody's saying it here. So it all depends on your context and the kind of processes that you have in place, but also remembering that you need to get started from somewhere, and then maybe later you will integrate them more deeply with your existing structures. And just to remind that, okay, these double materiality analysis, they need to be done for different locations as well, right? So you have maybe different production sites around the world, so the sort of environmental impact and social impact might be, of course, quite different in different places. And these like different standards and acronyms, I think they are a good starting point for you. So you can go through the checklist and think about the different types of impacts and risks and opportunities. But really, it is a iterative process and requires also input from your stakeholders. So you need to do this in the collaborative fashion, but then you also need to investigate these things much further than the standard mentioned, because many of these topics are quite high level. Things like pollution of air and pollution of water, and there is a lot of room for your organization to really think about and iterate that further. What does it mean in our value stream and in our business? And luckily, we have some elements to support also that process, such as AI, and also the collaborative parts, collaborative tool itself. But yeah. So basically, the double materiality assessment, how it flows in the tool, and I will show you the template in shortly. But basically, the different phases of the process. So in the beginning, of course, you need to do a little bit of context planning. So maybe you've done already a stakeholder mapping. Maybe you already understand who are the key customers and key suppliers who should be engaged in the process. Or maybe you need to do this stakeholder mapping a little bit further, and we do have tools for that as well. Yeah, and then of course you need to harvest the information. So you might have done already analysis, and you might have existing sustainability reports and metrics and strategies and plans. So smart thing to, of course, to include those elements also in the collaborative part. And then the collaborative part, you also start from the one or the other type of identification, and it really depends what you have already in place, what kind of information. So maybe you've already identified the impacts. So then maybe you can focus more on the sort of risk and opportunity side and what can happen and the sort of different chains of consequences in the company. So, or maybe you haven't done the work at all, and maybe you want to just get started with the standard list of ESG topics, and maybe you go through that and just flag the issues that you think are relevant for your company in the way that you are having potential on actual impacts on those topics and risks and opportunities and so on. And then impact materiality assessment, and again, based on what you did in the previous phase in the identification session, you have more detailed risk and opportunities explained here and impacts based on the inputs of your colleagues. And then you can do the entity level assessment, and also you can include the stakeholders in the materiality assessment also. So that is a possibility. And in the last step, you do the financial step, which is really just a quantification, where you try to assign monetary values for those things that you assessed in the previous phase that are having, your company is having actually or potentially a big impact on. So you try to understand the priority also in terms of financial impact. And the way I look at it, as I already mentioned, I think it's just a little bit of more complicated risk and opportunity management process, but there are a lot of similarities with the risk management process. And in long term, I think it's a good idea that you integrate these topics with your existing enterprise risk management or strategy risk management process, depending on the way you do it. I will walk you through the template. This will be shared with you as well, and this will be available. You can also play around with the demo yourself if you want, but this is now starting from the identification session, so the second part of the process after the initial context planning and configuration of the process. So you can have different teams here taking part in the sort of identification session, and those stakeholders will be invited via email, and you can send out automatic reminders and stuff like that to your colleagues, and have more information and guidance on how to actually do it. This, if you want to provide company policies and so on, that's possible. And here you have just like full list of ESG topics based on ESRS regulation in the level of sub topics. So for instance, in the pollution, we have pollution of water, air, pollution of soil, and so on. And basically, you are asking your stakeholders to do three different things. So first of all, you can flag the existing topics if you think that they are relevant for your company. Okay, pollution of soil. So just give your vote to it, and then you can also comment. So what is really the actual impact that you are having on pollution of soil, what kind of risks and opportunities there could be considering the type of activities that you are doing. It's really like the different perspectives and different stakeholders who submit their know-how to this process. And then, of course, you can add also new suggested that if you consider that what we are doing here based on the ESRS topics, maybe there are other frameworks and regulation and or something that we are inheriting from our existing sustainability strategy. Of course, you can add here also new suggestions, and this is really a flexible framework. So you can, if you have already identified that there are several frameworks that you need to adhere with, then of course you can change the content so it's not having only ESRS topics, but other topics as well, like TCFD, climate related stuff and whatnot, GRI and whatnot. So basically, based on the first sequence, first iteration, then after you have received more comments from your stakeholders, you are much better understanding what kind of impacts and opportunities and risks your company might be having, and you can also use AI for these purposes as well. And if you want, it's completely possible to just like provide even AI produced the risk scenarios of water use, for instance, to your stakeholders, and then that case your stakeholders will just validate those risk scenarios by like voting them and commenting if they see that it's a possible. Matthias will shortly demonstrate how to use the AI also as a part of the process, but yeah, there are a couple of ways to do this process, as I mentioned, depending on what you already have in your hands at the moment. But basically, after this sequence, you are then describing the risks and opportunities and impacts more closely. And please notice that what I have here in the impact materiality assessment, this is the same generic stuff taken from the standard, and this won't be the case after the first sequence. Instead, you will have more closely described risks and opportunities and impacts based on the contribution of your stakeholders. And then you do the impact assessment, and according to the standard, you need to think about the scales and scope, which is basically impact of that risk. So how grave it is and how many people will be affected and how large geographical scope and so on. And then you need to think about the irremediable character of the risk if this kind of thing would happen. So could we do something about it? Now for positive impacts, you have similar assessment criteria, and for risks and opportunities, it's basically the same, but you just need to do the likelihood as well. So quite standard risk management stuff to find out the sort of priorities. And you can design this in a way that your external stakeholders are maybe submitting their answers only regarding certain criteria. So you can really be flexible with the topics here and with the criteria and design it in a way that makes most sense to you and your stakeholders. And the final sequence is the financial materiality assessment. So you have the same topics here, and basically you can just adjust the likelihood assessment and financial impact for us, what it would be. And important part of both assessment, the impact materiality assessment and the financial materiality assessment, are the sort of explanations and insights and arguments here. So you can suggest also mitigation actions and mitigation strategies. So what should we do with the climate change adaptation? As mentioned, this is rather generic level now, but you might have much more detailed risks here, risk scenarios, and you think about their cost for the company and what to do with the risk mitigation and risk control. As an output of both assessments, you will get data visualization. So this would be just an example visualization to impact materiality. So all sustainability topics based on their averages, you can see how they are each category assessed here. You can use the data analysis features to find out what are the top priorities for you. You can look at the topics with the names or without the names. You can find out what are the topics where your organization have been most controversial about the impact and likelihood. So if you click the risk open, you can see the individual recipients here also and see their comments and justification. So it's really a good place to stop for the conversation. And what I mentioned in the beginning, that you should be really integrating this process into your management structure. So to me, this is a great way to manage the strategic and company level risks in the sort of highest level, and really think about the transformation and what is required. And of course, you can do it based on the financial materiality assessment rather than the impact materiality assessment, which would be maybe more interesting for the key decision makers then. So what are the sort of likely issues where the financial impact is the biggest? And just to point out that here we have done the assessment just based on the total potential financial impact, but it is of course possible to break it down into more detailed criteria. Maybe you want that financial department are doing the assessment in more granular level, so that is possible as well. And final thing that I want to say, that then you have also support for the monitoring, because monitoring of the action and development items, because as an output of this, of course, you will be identifying priority areas where you need to carry out certain mitigation actions or controls or data collection processes or developmental things. So you will be having also in the tool the sort of how you can monitor the action side of things as well, and platform will send out the notification to the responsible people, and there are deadlines, and you can check how many of those development items are proceeding as we've been planning and so on. But this is really in a nutshell the double materiality assessment. And of course here we had very limited time to discuss these matters, but for the existing clients who have already a license to the platform, you can just basically activate the double materiality template. So in order to do that, if you don't find it from your workspaces, please contact us. You can use the platform and ask or send us a support message to us, or just contact us directly, support@inclus.com. If you're interested to discuss more about the sustainability topics and maybe different organizational settings, and maybe you're specifically interested in climate scenarios and resilience then, or something else, please be in touch with us and let's have a conversation, and I'm sure that we can demo also other types of tools. And as mentioned, it's quite flexible platform for various purposes. But yeah, I will stop here, and thanks for your attention. And Matthias, I suppose you will be picking up from here.
Thank you, Valtteri. Very nice presentation, and nice to meet you all, and thank you for coming. And so I'm just gonna share my screen first. Second. So my name is Matias Sarvanne, and I'm a customer success specialist at Inclus, and I'm gonna shortly present you the Inclus AI capabilities and the release. So we have developed the AI functionalities in Inclus since last spring, very actively and very goal-oriented in mind, and we are still at the beginning of the AI journey. So I'm gonna shortly introduce what Inclus AI is today. So the purpose of Inclus AI is to work as an sort of virtual risk assistant for the risk process owner or risk manager. So in addition to the collaborative process, the risk process owner can then use AI to, for example, generate AI risk suggestions just to jumpstart your risk identification. For example, if you haven't got a risk list already, then you can use the AI just to jumpstart your risk process and identification. And after you have done the risk assessment phase, you can summarize the qualitative data. For example, all the comments that you have been receiving from the assessment phase. And in the end, when you have analyzed the risks and you want to assign mitigation measures, you can use the AI to just suggest some mitigation measures. And it is good that you can then save time in the action planning. All right, I'm gonna shortly then introduce the AI in the tool. Just a moment, I'm gonna switch places. I'm gonna go to the Inclus now. So here I have one example Inclus project. This is like I was doing the double materiality analysis. So first thing to do is to activate the AI in the project settings. This is at the moment at Inclus staff setting, but this will be available for all of the customers soon as well. So the first thing to do is to enable the context for the AI to chew on the risks and the task mitigation measures. So it's really good to think through descriptive and detailed context for the AI to really get the good suggestions and good content from to the AI. So first I have done this, and then just click save. And here in the risk register, if you really want to start from scratch, you can just have a couple of different categories. For here example, I have added few categories from the double materiality analysis. So the theme is the same. So for example, here, if I would like to dig deep, for example, these unsafe working conditions, I could add that as a new category. So it was a risk, but if I want to see what kind of a more detailed risk AI would suggest, I could just ask that, okay, so what kind of risks there are in a more detailed level in this. Okay, so here is the list. And of course, if I'm not pleased with these suggestions, I could ask again. So I'm just asking again and getting more risks. So for example, I could take a legal liabilities that this could be one risk, and then I could add that as a risk. And then of course, if I would like to have more categories in this topic, I could ask that AI suggests categories. So for example, supply chain transparency or supply chain risk management is also really important and is also related to this topic as well. And then I could just, of course, edit the category if I would want, and then suggest risks to that category. So there is quite detailed risk and descriptions under those risks. So for example, supply chain disruptions would be one relevant thing to monitor. So this is quite useful, and it really saves time if you don't have the risk list in hand and at the beginning, or then you can use this Inclus AI in addition to the collaborative process when you are identifying risks with your stakeholders and with your organization in the collaborative process. And then if we go to the task manager, so when we have assessed risks, we can then assign some tasks. So then if we don't have any tasks yet, we can ask AI, so what should we do to this risk? How could we mitigate it? We can then ask again from the AI. So also very detailed descriptions about the mitigation measures. So for example, this kind of risks are, then we can of course ask again what kind of new mitigation measures it suggests. So for example, whistleblowing is a very important thing. So we could add that as a task. So then we can, of course, assign responsible persons, starting dates, deadlines, and of course, the status there when the task is proceeding. And for the final thing that we can do at the moment is summarizing all the comments coming through the risk assessment. So here we are at the result side, and we have this kind of a new result component here. So I have added the comment view, so we can see all the comments coming to certain risk. So we can just check all the comments and then ask AI to generate a shorter summary of all the comments. And similarly, we can then just ask it to do the shorter summary. And again, if we are not satisfied of that, then we can ask again to generate it. And it gives us a little bit more shorter version of that, those comments. And then, of course, then we can save. And if we are not pleased with the summary, we can, of course, edit it. And I think the collaboration with AI, it is important that the human is also being the quality assurance guy there, and just in ensuring that the quality is good. And then, of course, you can edit the summaries later. But really, it is faster way to compile the data and just to summarize all the data and get the results in a compact style. So just go back to here. So next, Inclus AI will be available for all the customers. So the plan is that we are gonna enable the AI by early November. So how to activate? You can activate this AI in your Inclus project settings, and then just set the context. What are you doing in your risk management process? And if you need any assistance, just contact us or support@inclus.com. And this is if you already want it before the November, you can as well ask us to activate it for you. And a quick peek future, how Inclus AI is going to be developed. And this is only a start, as I said. So the future considerations of the future could be like better risk and insights and recommendations. So one would be to that we could create an executive summary with the help of AI from all the data from the project. And of course, the automating time-consuming tasks is very important thing that we can free up our time from the strategy and decision making. And of course, predictive data analysis, a big topic that I won't go so deep at this point, but there is a lot of different possibilities, and we invite you to join to comment and give suggestions what should we do in the future, and also invite you to our AI journey and to how the risk management is going to utilize AI. There is quite big opportunities in this regard as well. So here was my brief introduction about AI. If you have any questions, please feel free to give them in the question and answer part. And I think now is the time for Julie to present a few of other functionalities that we have published lately.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just to chip in here a bit before Julie takes the mic. So yeah, thank you, Valtteri and Matthias. Interesting presentations so far. Just to remind everyone and encourage you all to, if you have any questions whatsoever about the AI part or the sustainability processes, double materiality analysis. So feel free to send your questions, comments to the chat box here in Teams. So we'll get back to you on those shortly. All right, and Julie, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jesper. So as Jesper mentioned, I'll just briefly be talking about some new features that we have in the Inclus platform, and those are the dashboards and the incident reporting. So if I could get the next slide. So first, the dashboards allow you to consolidate the information from multiple projects into one singular visualizations view. So Valtteri already showed us what that visualizations look like, and it's the exact same functionality. We, in the dashboards, are able to combine the individual answers to each risk from multiple projects and put them into one view. So for example, if you're assessing the same risk in different regions, different locations, even across different quarters, the dashboards allow you to combine all of those answers into one view and assess the averages of each answers. At the same time, also click into each risk and see the individual answers according to the project. So you're able to do both within one dashboard. So in these images here that we have in the slide, the first one at the top is showing us the average of those individual risks from 2 projects that we're assessing. And the picture below is showing those same risks, but how the assessment of those risks have changed. So we have the end of Q1 and the end of Q3 and how the assessment of these individual risks has changed. And on the topic of double materiality, for example, if you are conducting double materiality assessments on many different projects, different subsidiaries, locations, whatever it may be, you can evaluate all of that information in the dashboards so that you have a comprehensive view of your double materiality as an entire company. And we can just go straight into incident reporting. So the next slide. And the incident reporting feature allows you to monitor, create reports regarding any incident that occurs that needs to be managed. So you're able to provide basic information on each incident, what happened, any documentation that you would maybe like to provide or that your users would like to provide. And you're able to monitor its status and provide updates in real time. And also in the platform, you're able to attach the incident reports to a specific risk that you've already identified as part of your risk profile. And as mentioned with a couple of other features, just ask us to enable it for you if you'd like to be able to do the incident reporting in the platform. So that was a very brief overview, but we covered a lot of information today in the webinar, so I didn't want to get too detailed. And I'll repeat what's already been said, is just to reach out to any of us if you have any questions or would like to dig into this information any further. And with that, I'll pass it back to Jesper, and I think we can get started on the Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Julie. Yeah, I think it's been a packed webinar so far, so good that we kept it as an overview at this point, and I'm sure that we will be creating a bunch of more detailed instructions and manuals and tutorial videos on each of the key features that we highlighted here today. So stay tuned on those. But then before we finish off here today, really would like to, if you have any questions about the topics here today, so feel free. Now would be the time to submit your questions the chat, or you can also, if you want, you can raise your hand and I'll give you the microphone. But currently we don't have any questions, but I can go ahead and ask some question, as for example about here from Juha is asking about the AI. So Valtteri would like to answer. So what's the tech behind the AI currently?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So we are currently using the language models. So basically ChatGPT-4, although it's running on Microsoft servers, so it's following the data protection regulation by Microsoft. So if you are putting any data on Microsoft Cloud, it's basically exactly the same rule. So in the beginning of the language models, that data was used by OpenAI to sort of further develop those language models further, which of course raised concerns by many users, and that is not anymore the case. So Microsoft doesn't they don't use the data to develop the model further, and I think they use the data for 30 days to just like try to find out violations of the regulation and something like that. But yeah, large language models are what we are currently relying on.
Great, thank you, Juha. I could actually ask from Valtteri again about the sustainability side. So yes, as we see, or you went mostly through all the some background to the double materiality assessment as well. So would be interesting to hear more about what are some, or have you seen some, you've been talking a lot with our current customers about the topic. So is there any like challenges related to the double materiality assessment or the CSRD regulation that you've stumbled upon? So what would be like a typical challenge that people run into when double materiality?
That's a fantastic question. And I think pretty much everyone that I talk with is struggling with the content. It's quite fresh still, and it's huge amount of information. So I think that is a challenge at the moment. And of course, like in the spring, you had the limited information. Now they have released the final versions and so on. So maybe that is a little bit alleviated and so on. But I think in general there are a lot of confusion about the process, and should I start by collecting data, and what should I do, and what is a materiality assessment? So just to try to say that if you're having these issues, you are not alone, and many companies are having the same issues. And I think in general, like the sort of collaborative part, I think it's also not, in my opinion, it's not necessarily understood as well as it should have been. I mean, you need to do the engagement part with your stakeholders, but then if you haven't done the sort of traditional materiality assessments in the past, it might be quite difficult to start thinking about, okay, who are the people who should be part of this exercise.
Yeah, thanks. Good answer there from Valtteri. I think we are pretty much done here, so I would like to, is there anything that Julie, Valtteri, or Matias would like to add here regarding the topics we've covered? Oh, great. Saying that, I would like to thank you all for participating and your interest here today, and thank you to our presenters. I think you did a good job as always, so thank you for that. And yeah, as I said, so I will be sending you the recording from this webinar probably at latest during tomorrow to do some editing on the recording. But other than that, I would say that we are done here for today. So thank you all, and hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.